Alright then, cloud gurus. Taking a step or two back, it all starts with the code, and yeah, I guess that's driven by like an idea or maybe a business requirement, but you get it right. You write your code. Then you bundle it up with all of its dependencies into a Docker image. Then you put that in a registry. And you know what? Up to this point, it's fair to say these steps are not really Kubernetes, but they absolutely need doing for Kubernetes to be able to run your app. Anyway, right. Then we create a Kubernetes object that references the image we just made and includes a bit of stuff maybe that tells Kubernetes how to run it. Now, when I say Kubernetes object, there's a few options. We could wrap the container in a pod, and that works okay, but we never do it, right? We tend to wrap everything in a higher level construct like a deployment, or maybe a daemon set or a stateful set. Now, I reckon the most common's a deployment, and we're going to be getting into them in a future lesson. But for now, just think of them as building on top of pods, but providing things like 24/7 always on and scaling and rollouts and stuff. Anyway, I reckon it's helpful to picture this flow as 3 stages. And you know what? I'm intentionally missing out a boatload of production stuff like testing and scanning and version control and all the other goodness that comes with a proper CI/CD pipeline. And I get it, right? That stuff is way important, okay? But I'm leaving it out so that we can focus on the essentials of getting your code onto a Kubernetes cluster. So remember, right, in the real world, yeah, you're gonna throw a bunch of other really important stuff into the mix here. I just don't want it getting in the way of what we're learning. Well, 3 stages, yeah? I'd call them coding, Docker, and Kubernetes. So you write your code in your favorite language. Docker and Kubernetes, they don't care, they're not opinionated. I mean, I normally like to write mine in machine code, yeah, or sometimes raw binary. But I know that's not for everyone, so go with your Python or Java or whatever, yeah? Well, once you've got everything written and tested, then it's time to Docker build. And for that, you'd maybe use a desktop app like Docker Desktop for Mac or Windows. But it's like this. You lump your code and its dependencies into a directory, and then you write a Docker file telling Docker how to build it all into an image. Now, in case this is all new to you, right? You've got your code and stuff in a directory. Then you throw in a Docker file. That's basically a list of instructions on how to take that code and make it into a Docker image. We'll see it all in a sec, right? Anyway, then we run Docker build. We tell it what to name the image and where the Docker file is. Then we sit back while Docker does its magic. And after however long it takes, out pops a Docker image. Then you take that image and you push it to a registry, which absolutely can be on-prem or in your private cloud. Now in our examples, we'll be using Docker Hub on the internet. But for sure, right, in the real world, you're going to be pushing to your own registry on-prem or in your private cloud. Well, then, after all of that comes the Kubernetes stuff. Now, here we're showing a deployment manifest file that basically says, well, look, we're not showing it all here because if we did, it'd be so small you'd need like superhero vision. But I think we can see the basics. We're taking the Docker image from the previous stage. Let's roll that out as a Kubernetes deployment, please, and we'll have 3 replicas. And yeah, like I said, right, there's a bunch more to it and we'll see it soon enough. But that's the flow. Take your code, build it into a Docker image, maybe compile your code at the same time, push that to a registry, wrap it in a Kubernetes object like a deployment or a daemon set, then run it on your cluster with kubectl. Or kubectl, kubectl, kubecontrol, whatever you want to call it, right? Look, they're all good with me. And that's all great stuff, right? But talk is cheap, and PowerPoint is crushing my will to live. So let's do away with the slides and we'll get our hands dirty and walk through a quick example.